Elijah Moore learned early that the street looked different depending on who was walking on it. On Maplewood Avenue, the pavement was cracked and uneven near his apartment building, but smoother and freshly painted 3 blocks west, where houses had lawns instead of iron bars on the windows. Elijah noticed things like that. He noticed how store owners followed him with their eyes, how police cars slowed when he crossed the road, how people's voices changed, just slightly, when they spoke to him. He carried a sketchbook everywhere. In it, he drew buildings that didn't exist yet, tall, glass towers filled with light, neighborhoods without dividing lines. One afternoon, Elijah and Marcus were walking home from school when a police cruiser rolled to a stop beside them. "Where you boys headed?" Officer Reed asked through the open window. "Home," Marcus said, irritation already rising in his voice. Officer Reed looked them over, his eyes lingering on their hoodies, their backpacks. "You mind if I check your bags?" Elijah's heart sank. They had done nothing. They were doing nothing. But he knew the rules of survival. Stay calm, don't argue, don't move too fast. "Is there a reason, sir?" Marcus asked. Officer Reed's jaw tightened. "Don't get smart." After 5 humiliating minutes, the officer found nothing and drove off without an apology. Marcus kicked a rock down the sidewalk. "Man, I'm sick of this." Elijah said nothing. He just opened his sketchbook that night and drew a street divided by an invisible line. At North Ridge High School, Daniel Whitman sat 2 rows behind Elijah in history class. Daniel was tall, blonde, and carried himself like the world had already made room for him. He played soccer, had plans for college, and had never been stopped by police. When Ms. Alvarez assigned a group project on equality in modern America, Daniel rolled his eyes. "This is dumb," he whispered to his friend. Racism ended, like, decades ago. Fate, or maybe Ms. Alvarez, paired Daniel with Elijah. The first meeting was awkward. Elijah spoke softly. Daniel barely listened. "I think we should focus on historical racism," Daniel said. "Slavery, civil rights, stuff like that." "Not today." Elijah looked up. "Why not today?" "Because it's not really a thing anymore," Daniel shrugged. "Everyone's equal now." Elijah stared at him, then slowly closed his sketchbook. "You ever been scared just walking home?" Elijah asked. Daniel laughed. "No, why would I be?" Elijah didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence said enough. That Friday night, Elijah stayed late at school to finish a drawing. When he walked out, the sky was dark, and the streets were quiet. A police car pulled up. Officer Reed again. "Hands where I can see them," he said. Elijah froze. "There's been a robbery nearby," Officer Reed continued. "You match the description." Elijah's hands trembled as he raised them. "What description?" he asked quietly. "Black male, hoodie." That was it. That was the description. A crowd began to form. Someone recorded on their phone. Officer Reed pushed Elijah against the car, searching him roughly. "I didn't do anything," Elijah said, his voice cracking. Officer Reed's grip tightened. "Stop resisting." "I'm not resisting." Minutes later, the real suspect was caught 2 blocks away. Officer Reed released Elijah without a word. Elijah walked home in shock, his body shaking, his sketchbook bent and torn. When Ruth saw him, she knew immediately something was wrong. "They did it again," Elijah whispered. Ruth held her son and cried, not just for that night, but for every night to come. On Monday, the video was everywhere. Students whispered. Teachers avoided eye contact. Ms. Alvarez didn't. She paused class and played the video on the projector. "This," she said firmly, "is modern racism." Daniel watched, his stomach tightening. He recognized Elijah's voice. The fear in it. The way Officer Reed's hand never left his weapon. For the first time, Daniel felt uncomfortable, not defensive, not annoyed, but shaken. After class, he stopped Elijah in the hallway. "I didn't know," Daniel said. Elijah looked at him. "That's the problem." Their project changed. Elijah shared stories, his own, his father's, his neighbors'. Marcus spoke about anger. Ruth spoke at a school forum about fear. Daniel listened, really listened. He learned that racism wasn't just slurs or hatred. It was systems, patterns, assumptions. It was the street looking different depending on who walked on it. On presentation day, Daniel spoke last. "I used to think racism was over," he said, his voice unsteady. "I was wrong. I was blind because I didn't have to see it." The room was silent. Elijah stood beside him, sketchbook in hand. On the final slide was Elijah's drawing. One street, no dividing line. Months later, Officer Reed attended mandatory bias training. Change was slow, painfully slow, but seeds had been planted. Elijah kept drawing. Daniel kept learning. And the street, though still cracked, had begun, inch by inch, to change. This story shows that racism is not always loud, it is often quiet, routine, and invisible to those who don't suffer from it. Change begins not with comfort, but with listening.